Hey, sports fans, welcome on in. It's the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell. So glad you could join us today. Do all that fun stuff, like us, share this. We love it. We love you, and I really appreciate all of you who have tuned in and joined us. It's growing significantly, so thank you so much. Without further ado, because this is exciting, it's, of course, Super Bowl week. We have with us none other than Super Bowl winning coach and former NFL quarterback, Doug Pederson. Doug, how you doing today?
Scott, I am great. Living down here in South Florida. It's a little bit chilly. I'll tell you this. Down here in Florida, it's chilly. It's been in the upper 20s in the mornings, but it's going to be nice today. It's going to be close to 70. But other than that, we're doing great.
So you're in South Florida then?
We are. Jupiter, Florida.
Yeah. Oh, you're in Jupiter. Very nice.
Yeah. Love it down here.
Yeah. So Dougie Fresh. When was the last time anyone called you Dougie Fresh? Is that something that's stuck with you all these years? Or
you know what, Scott? It still has. Sometimes my wife calls me that. For I don't know why, but a lot of my close friends, even some of former teammates, still call me Dougie Fresh, or just call me Fresh, and the name has stuck over the years.
So I think so much with all these coaching hires and changes, and I think of you all the time, and there's so many questions about that I want to ask you. But the first thing, I'm really curious, was there ever anything that someone said, like a criticism to you as a coach, that got to you? I know we get criticism, we kind of let it roll off our back, but was there ever a comment that just really got in under your skin?
Yeah, there was, Scott, and I won't say the name, but when I was hired in Philadelphia, this gentleman came out and said that I was the worst hire in obviously Eagles history, but in the NFL for that year, and that was 2016, and that kind of stuff. Just as much as you try not to let that stuff bother you, you're trained, right? As athletes, as coaches, you're trained not to listen to the outside media. But that one right there, just, I don't know, it was a little bit of motivation. It was kind of fuel for my fire, and tried not to let it get to you. But that was something that everybody's entitled to opinion. I got that. But at the same time, that one kind of stuck with me and bothered me for a little while.
Winning a Super Bowl in Philadelphia has to be the greatest accomplishment of any coach ever in the NFL. Andy Reid was there for quite some time, and he was not able to do it. And you talk about the criticism. How sweet was that? I mean, did you think a lot about that after you had won the Super Bowl? It's like, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Scott, everywhere that my wife and I travel, even if we're out to dinner or on the golf course here doing whatever, we always run into Eagles fans or just NFL fans, period. And they always obviously remember the Super Bowl, but the Philly special and that play and so it brings back a lot of great memories, especially the city of Philadelphia. I mean, one man might make a comment like, you're the worst coach, this, that, and the other. But, the team believed in you, the fans believed in you, and you go out and you win a championship that, has never been done in their history. Obviously they've won another one since, but that kind of stuff, man, that just makes you feel proud to know that you were a part of that. And you got to lead an organization and really lead a city to a championship, and to see the smile on the fans' face. And quite honestly, just last night, we were at dinner, and one of the waitresses came over, and her parents, they're all Eagles fans, and took a picture and sent it back home to her folks. And, they just appreciate that, the first one. And it just makes me feel proud and brings back so many great memories.
Where were you eating dinner? What were you having?
We were at a place called Hog Snappers here in Jupiter. And I had a pan fried snapper with a little saffron rice and stir fried vegetables. So good. Wow. So good.
Yeah, that fresh fish and by the sea is a good thing. I don't get that here in Utah. We don't get that kind of fish here in Utah. So okay, you're talking about these Philly fans. I hate Philly fans, Doug.
I know you do.
I hate them. I've never had a good experience there.
Yeah.
Are they really? I mean, are they really that bad?
They are. They are. If especially if you're the opposing team coming
Yeah.
in there, it is ruthless. It is hard. Now, I will say this: when I worked, for Coach Reid, and we went back Kansas City, we went back to Philly. Fans were great to Coach Reid. I took Jacksonville back there twice. They were great to me, obviously, but they can be ruthless, man. They can. You hear it from the moment you walk out on that field. You hear it from them, but again, for me, being on the other side, winning a championship and being a part of that city was nothing but just exciting and nothing but special for us.
So I'm really curious because wow, got some noise going on here. I'm curious about the coaching hiring process. Like, I know what it's like to be a player, and you're a free agent. You have an agent. You go around all these teams. You visit the draft process, all that stuff. But just walk me through what it's like to go through an interview as to be an NFL head coach. What's that like?
Well, for me, my experience, I was the offensive coordinator in Kansas City, and obviously the Eagles were looking for a head coach in 2016, and they had interviewed several. We were still in the postseason that year in Kansas City, but yet a team is going to put together a list of maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 guys. Some teams will go 20 deep, candidates that they want to talk to. I'm not saying they talk to all of them, but they put an extensive list together. And, so for me, there's not a lot of time to prepare, especially when you're coaching and trying to win a football game and all of that. But, my time in Jacksonville, I was out the year before in 2021. So I had time to prepare and think about my next opportunity. And a lot of the coaches that have been out of football that are getting these interviews have had time to kind of prepare, for a lengthy interview. And these things can run 3 hours, 4, 5 hours at the most. And really a lot of it too is just kind of getting to know each other, kind of getting the feel, right, to see if the personalities match up, if that candidate's going to be right for the organization. And you obviously dive into philosophy and you don't talk about, scheme or nothing like that, but your philosophy about the draft, free agency, just, travel, food, it just goes down the line. And, so you try to do your best, in these interviews and try to put your best foot forward and really come off, especially if they're going to interview 5 or 6 guys, you want to be one of the 2 or 3 that they bring back for a second interview. You always hear this all the time where so-and-so is getting a second interview with the team. And, and it's an extensive process. It may go, 2 or 3 weeks, or in some cases, like this year, it's going to wait till after the Super Bowl. You see where, Clint Kubiak is, penciled in right now to be the Vegas head coach, but it's after the Super Bowl. So teams linger into February a little bit to make a hire and make a decision and go from there. So it's it can be a little bit stressful not knowing, but at the same time, in my case in Philadelphia, I felt comfortable that it was going to be an opportunity for me to be their next head coach.
So, like, at what point did you know? Like, did you walk in the interview going, "Oh, I got this," or was there a part of it that did they tell you they like you? I'm just so fascinated by this. And did you ever say anything like you go, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that. That was a bad
No,
answer."
I never said. I never came away saying I shouldn't have said that. But there are some moments where you walk away going, "Oh, I should have said this." Or I should have elaborated more on a topic or something like that. But, in Philadelphia back in 2016, like I said, I was in Kansas City as the offensive coordinator. We were in the postseason. We were getting ready to play the Patriots actually in the divisional round. So I interviewed the weekend before. We go play got good reviews. My agent got good reviews from the interview, and they were real comfortable and liked everything. But it wasn't until after we lost that divisional round game to the Patriots the next week, Mr. Lurie, the owner of the Eagles, called me. I was sitting on the bus getting ready to head back to the airport after that game, and Mr. Lurie had called me and says, "Hey, want to offer you the job, in Philadelphia." So That's where I
Wow.
was. That's when I got the phone call. But I did get good reviews, from my agent coming out of that interview process.
You were you weren't really in coaching, or you coached high school football and then you got on with Andy Reid. How did that happen? What was that process like?
Yeah, so I played my last year in the NFL was 2004, and
Yeah.
I was with the Green Bay Packers, and decided to step away from football going into the 2005 season, and I wanted to get into coaching. I just didn't know really what level of coaching, high school, college, pro. Um, I talked to a lot of my NFL coaches at that time in Green Bay. Mike Sherman, Darrell Bevel was there. Tom Rossley was there. A lot of those offensive guys, and just kind of picking their brain. I'll never forget Mike Sherman, head coach, told me and gave me a great piece of advice. He said, Doug, you need to find, if you want to coach, find somewhere where you can teach football. And, because coaches are really teachers, right? They just got to be able to, they got to teach fundamentals. They got to know fundamentals, but they got to teach scheme and plays and how to do certain things the right way. And so that stuck with me. And it still sticks with me today as far as coaches go. And so that's when I jumped into high school. I got into high school, football right out of, retirement. Coached at Calvary Academy in Shreveport, Louisiana for 4 years. And then I jumped back to the NFL in 2009 and with Andy Reid in Philadelphia. So I felt that the high school route was better for me. It really gave me an opportunity to see if I loved coaching, and I liked coaching because I could teach the game at a simple level in a way.
Right.
And then I thought it prepared me for, jumping back to the NFL.
Yeah, I coached high school. I went back to my high school where I grew up, and they asked me to come back, and wasn't really I wasn't thinking of coaching, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I had just an incredible time. We were able to do a lot of things, and I was surprised at how well the players picked it up. And because it, and you wonder, well, maybe it's just that I know it, and it was just really satisfying actually to teach these kids how to do it. And they go, Coach, man, we put your plays on Madden and they actually work, and it's like, so it's pretty,
but Scott, too, like you have this wealth of knowledge coming
oh
out of the
gosh.
NFL of all this offense and defense going on. It's like, how do I get a 16 or 18-year-old kid to learn what I know,
Right.
And you really have to kind of water it down. That was kind of the dilemma I had facing high school that first year.
Yeah. I recognize really early, I go, they don't understand. They don't see the game. They don't understand it like I do. They
Not
don't
at
see
all.
it. And so, and it is a challenge. Fun. I had a great experience with it.
It's awesome. I did enjoy it.
So you talk about like having time, when you're having that time off. And I'm curious about like how do you build a staff? Do you have guys do you watch other guys? And is there a balance between maybe guys who played in the league and then guys who didn't, and what's that make, are former players good coaches, bad coaches? What's the makeup for you of a really good staff?
Yeah, the building of your staff can be a little bit tricky because you got to deal with so many positions, and then on top of that, just as you break it down, you look at your quality control coaches, and then all your analysts on top of that, and so your staff can get pretty big pretty quick. But for me, it always starts with the coordinators. Having a great and being an offensive guy, I wanted somebody that could think a lot like me and kind of teach the same way I taught things, and the vision and all of that. So that's why in my first year in Philly, Frank Reich was an ideal candidate for me, because we think alike. We both played in the NFL. He had been a coordinator in San Diego back then, and so he was a perfect fit. Defensive coordinator was Jim Schwartz that year, and he stayed with me for the 5 years. Jim was a former head coach. At that time, he'd been a coordinator for over 20 years in the National Football League, had a wealth of knowledge. And as a first-time head coach, I kind of wanted that veteran defensive guy, that that head coach mindset. So I didn't have to really worry so much about the defensive side of things. I could focus more on offense. And then special teams is special teams. You want somebody that, has a good grasp on not only the league, but just scheme and kind of has my philosophy a little bit. And hey, listen, I don't mind having a trick play, a fake field goal, a punt, things like that, in there. And so somebody that has that kind of mindset. And so Dave Phipp was that candidate for me. And he was on Chip Kelly's staff the year before in Philly. So I retained him in Philadelphia. So those were my coordinators going in. And then from there, you start filling in your pieces, right? And listening to Jim Schwartz and say, hey, Jim needs this guy or he needs that guy, to help teach his scheme and his philosophy on defense. So you start bringing in these candidates, you start talking to them, you interview them, same way on offense, getting with Frank and say, Frank, who do we want as our quarterback coach? We need somebody. We're going to go out and probably draft a quarterback our first year, which we did in Carson Wentz. And we want somebody that can come in and speak our language, can teach ball to him. He can mentor him. He can develop him. We need to have a good, strong candidate there. And then you just kind of go down the list and you start filling out your staff. And as far as former players go, not every former player makes a great coach. I just think that, sure, they have a lot of knowledge, but they have a hard time communicating that to players. And the other thing too is it's not about, well, this is what we did back in 1995. Well, no, this is 2010, 2011. This is 2016, 17. So, it can't always be about what I did in the past. And so that's why sometimes former players don't make great coaches. But there are a lot of former players out there that have the mindset. They were grinders. And quite honestly, Scott, they were probably backups in the National Football League, and they were built for that. So that's kind of how I went about building my staff. And you get a lot of recommendations. Your phone blows up day and night with people looking for a job. I've always said this, that there's way more coaches out there than there are positions. And so you really have to do your due diligence to hire the right guys.
Yeah, I was going to call you and say, hey, Doug, I got a few ideas.
You could be the quarterback guy.
I'd want to be the defensive line coach is what I'd want to be, because I know what bothers quarterbacks. And so that's what I want to do.
There you go.
I look at like a guy like Mike Holmgren and some of the coaches he had on his staff. The Mariucci's and the Andy Reids and the John Grudens and you see some of these coaches of just, their coaching trees are impressive. When you built out your staff, was it ever, did you want guys that were better than you, smarter than you? That was there ever a concern about, I don't want to say loyalty, but about kind of having the same message, that you're portraying to a team? What goes into that when you're hiring people?
Yeah, those are all that's a great question, because you never know what is truly going on in somebody's head, what their goals are. Even though as you interview coaches, it's one of the things I talk about. I talk about their goals. What do they want? What do they want to get out of it? How long do they want to stay here with me until they get their next opportunity? And you're constantly, I think, just having conversations with these guys, and so it's a tricky balance, with all of that. But you look at Mike Holmgren and that staff he had. Obviously, Mike came from Bill Walsh in San Francisco, and there were some great coaches on that staff. And then Mike, takes over in Green Bay, and he has the guys you mentioned, 3 or 4 now head coaches or former head coaches. And then you look at Andy Reid's staff back when he was with the Eagles as a head coach. I mean, the Ron Rivera's, the John Harbaugh's, we're on that. Sean McDermott, who was an assistant, almost a quality control guy.
Wow.
I was a player for Andy, and it just kind of goes down the list. And yet, for me, I always communicated with the coaches like, hey, give me 2 years, at least give me 2 years to establish this program before you jump ship. Now, I can't keep a coordinator, let's say, who's being interviewed for a head coaching job, right? I can't block a guy like that, but I do have, as head coaches, we have the ability or the power, let's say, to block a coach from making a lateral move. But, nowadays too, people are throwing different titles at people and they're giving them more money and this and that. And so it's a little bit tricky to navigate those waters a little bit. But, I feel like if you can give me 2 years of just, dedicating yourself to this team and let's see what happens. And really after that, if they want to, get promoted to a coordinator somewhere else or promoted to a head coach somewhere else, then I'm all for it, and that's, to me, because then you're grooming the next guy, your quality control guy or something like that could be the next coach that fills in, for that coach that just left. So you're constantly every year, evaluating your staff and letting guys go and filling in new pieces. And it's really, for me too, it's a great way to get new ideas on offense, new ideas on defense, a different way of thinking things. And it does make it fun, but at the same time, it's a challenge to navigate, those waters.
Yeah, I'll bet. You mentioned Carson Wentz a bit ago, and I'm always perplexed by Carson Wentz. I really quarterbacks in general. I mean, you look at Sam Darnold. He was seeing ghosts in New York, and he kind of was a well-traveled former first-round quarterback, and that usually doesn't go well when you get moved around a lot of places. You usually end up out of the league, and he was able to resurrect himself. And then you see these young players, a lot of them like Drake May and some of these young quarterbacks that are having so much success early on. First off, just what happened to Carson Wentz? And because he looked like he was going to be one of the future stars of the NFL.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, he had a pretty good rookie season with us, and then goes into his sophomore year and really came out, just on fire. And obviously the success we had as a football team. I mean, but unfortunately that year he hurt his knee and he missed the remainder of the season. But I truly believe too that we lost him in like week 13 out in LA. We had a couple regular season games left. We take a backup quarterback who wasn't a rookie. He was a veteran, and Nick Foles. And we go on to win the Super Bowl, and Nick Foles becomes, the MVP of that Super Bowl. And listen, for anybody in Carson's shoes, that has to play and weigh pretty heavily on your mind, right? On your mindset. As a former quarterback, that just has to what's next for me now? How am I supposed to rebound from this? So you put more pressure on yourself to try to perform and try to outdo that performance the next season. And, Carson got hurt the next year and Nick had to come in and play again the next season. And I just think everything just began to kind of snowball a little bit for him. And then 2020, obviously the pandemic year was hard on all of us, but I think it just ran its course. And it's unfortunate because, Carson's a great guy. He's a really good quarterback. He's athletic, can throw the football. I mean, and he's smart. He studies the game, and obviously he's bounced around now. But I just think all of that with the Super Bowl and how we did it with Nick really kind of played heavily on Carson.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way, and it would, because you feel like you're like, wait, I did a lot to help this team get to the Super Bowl, but then I'm kind of forgotten. And of course, Nick Foles and the whole Philly special and all that story. And I imagine that would be kind of a challenge. And yeah, I'm always fascinated by these quarterbacks and how, it's so much about the right opportunity, the right time, the right system. And, you look at Trevor Lawrence and you had Trevor and you did a great job there. And then, the second year, what are your thoughts about him and just kind of your time with him? And it looks like he's kind of headed in the right direction right now.
Yeah. It was the reason why I went to Jacksonville and really wanted that job, just to work with Trevor Lawrence. And what a great kid. He was young, coming out of Clemson, and athletic, much like Carson in a way, and kind of the same kind of the same traits that we saw in Carson, we had in Trevor, and just a fun person to be around and coach. And we had a really good year in 22. We made the postseason. We had a great, obviously, playoff game against the Chargers. We came back from 20 or 21 points down and win that football game, and that really catapulted us into the next season, into 23. And we started that year 8-3, and we were off and running that second year, and then he gets hurt and he misses the back 4 or 5 games of the season, and that hurt us, when you lose your starting quarterback that way. And then you get to 24 and the same thing. He got hurt again up in Philadelphia, actually, and just never
bad
got
place,
healthy
Doug.
enough.
Philadelphia's a bad place. I'm telling you, it's a bad place.
And so he didn't finish the season again in 24. And so then you fast forward to this year, and that's why I was excited about what Trevor is. He stayed healthy and he played well, and he led that team, to the AFC South title, into the postseason. And that's everything that we saw in him in 22. And so I'm happy for him, excited for him. I think the future's bright. He stays on that same path and works and builds every year, which he has that in him. He could be one of the next young up and coming quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah. It just fascinates me to see the guys that make it and don't. And a lot of it's because I played the position, and you understand kind of the challenge of it, and when you do well and when you don't. It's just really fascinating to me. Tom Moore, Tom was a longtime NFL assistant, 48 years, I believe. Anyways, I was talking to him recently, and he finally said, my number 2 pencil got replaced by some computer and 35-year-old guy with a bunch of analytics. He stuck around the NFL a long time and was very successful with a lot of different teams. He coached me in Detroit. Didn't love Tom Moore and what we did there, but how has the game changed, even from your time, my time when we played, but also through and kind of your career as a coach and where it is today?
I think the analytics have always been around. It's just that when you and I played, it was way into the background. I think it was probably more used probably on the scouting side just a little bit, and then as technology improved and more of the analytical pieces, I guess, kind of started showing up in the National Football League. It was really in 2017, in 2017, really my second year in Philadelphia, that analytics started to kind of take off a little bit into the forefront. It became known that analytics were a part of the game. I think, I used it as a tool. I never used it as the end all be all, like this is the way we got to do it. Because the one thing that analytics can't predict really is, player injury. A lot of times the weather, are you inside? Are you outside? All the different sort of the human element of the football game is what analytics cannot predict. And so, that's why you just use it as a tool. And, but now it's really kind of, I don't want to say it's taken over, but it's really made its way, and it has a big impact on how coaches coach. And for me, to be able to make in-game decisions, to have people in my ear, on 4th down or a 2-point conversion, or, take a timeout here. I mean, all those things play a big part in the game today. And some coaches use it as it's the gospel, it's the Bible. We got to follow this report this week, but others are just using it as a tool. But it's become a bigger part. An analytic department in a National Football League could be anywhere from 1 to 2 guys, or it could be a team of 12. In your building. So it's a big part. It's a big part of it. But again, you can't play a football game through a computer screen. You got to be able to move your pieces, human pieces against an opponent and make smart decisions and again, use it as a tool.
Roger Goodell, in his kind of state of the NFL, mentioned the Rooney Rule, and he goes, maybe we need to evaluate and look and see what happens there. What's your thoughts on the Rooney Rule, and Do you like it? You don't like it? Should it be better? Is it getting the results? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think when you look at it and you look at it really from this year's hiring, you would say that it's not working, right?
Right.
I mean, there were a lot of, you know, Black, African American, other ethnicities, coaches there, and who are great coaches around the National Football League that might get overlooked, and or they get the interview but don't get the job. And for me, I enjoyed meeting different people from different backgrounds because it's just different philosophies, different scheme, different backgrounds that I enjoyed talking to people about and making good decisions. I think it's something that has to be reviewed, has to kind of be looked at again to see why it's not working, all the time. And but there are some really good coaches out there and really good coordinators out there, and just giving them an opportunity you want to give them an opportunity. And sometimes you get with organizations and teams that maybe steer you in a different direction, right? From whether it be from ownership or the general manager or different things like that. And so, you want to hire these people. They're like I said, they're great coaches, and sometimes you get steered in a different direction, and it's unfortunate, but I think it does need to be probably looked at. But for me personally, it was a great way to meet some great people and to make some good hires that way.
Last thing, the Super Bowl, two teams I don't think anyone really thought were going to be there. And what do you think about this year's Super Bowl?
I tell you what, I think to me, it just kind of shows the parity of the National Football League. And when you get new blood and new teams in there and new coaches in there, and some of these, Vrabel's a good friend of mine. And of course, McDonald in Seattle, who great defensive mind, both two defensive coaches, they always say defense wins championships, but I never really understood that because it's the team that scores more points. But,
right.
It's an exciting Super Bowl. I think there's some really good, storylines in this game. Really none bigger than probably the Sam Darnold, quarterback, his journey to get, to the Super Bowl. And I'm excited to watch him. And he's played extremely well the last 2 years, and two different teams and two different head coaches and two different coordinators, and just to play at a high level. But it also goes to show you too, that you can construct a team around a guy like Sam Darnold to help him, where he doesn't have to do it all himself. And that's what a year ago Minnesota did. And that's what obviously Seattle has done with him. And then you got the young Drake May, exciting guy, exciting quarterback. He's built for a Vrabel team, just an exciting young quarterback that, again, the future is bright, and they'll continue to add pieces around him and just continue to build. I'm excited to watch this game. I think it'll be a closer game than what people may think, but you never know. But the Super Bowl is a Super Bowl, and you put everything out there, and there's no holding back. So both teams are going to be gearing and ready to go.
Spoken from someone who is a Super Bowl winning head coach. So, hey, enjoy the frosty, warm, sunny South Florida weather, Doug. Always a pleasure. I think the world of you, and this has been wonderful. It's been very insightful to me, and I got a lot of my questions answered, so I appreciate it. So have a good day. Thank you.
I appreciate it, Scott. Thanks again for reaching out, getting me on, and look forward to always talking to you and talking some ball. So yeah, thank you.
It's the only way we catch up. So I'll have you on more often than
There you go. I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready.
All right. Thank you. There you have it, folks. This has been the Down and Dirty. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Have a great day, everyone. And until then, we'll see you then.